Hi everyone, welcome to this video on the first lesson of the Human Body Part 2 scheme. This first lesson is a bit of an introductory one, and it's one of those areas in the science curriculum where it's kind of science, but there's also a certain amount of PSHE type stuff being covered, and actually, that's a really important part of the science curriculum. But yeah, some of this stuff goes a bit beyond what sometimes or what might strictly be called science. But anyway, what we want students to recognise here is something that I certainly wasn't taught at school, and many of you watching this video might not have been taught at school, or if we were taught it at school, it wasn't really lived in everyday experience, which is that health has two components. So generally, when we think of a healthy person, certainly when I was a teenager at school, a healthy person was someone who was physically healthy. No one really paid too much attention to mental health. Obviously, that's changed a lot in the last few years, but we want to make that explicit to students. And the point that we want to make is, well, okay, if health is a matter of both your physical well-being and your mental well-being, what are the factors that can affect that? And the way I have explained this is just to list a few of these things that can affect it. So you can see them here, and it's worth saying that both of these can affect. Sorry, beg your pardon. All of these can affect both your physical and mental health. And I think don't be afraid to use a bit of time in this lesson to have quite an open conversation about also some of the symptoms of physical and mental health, and the fact that yes. There can be physical diseases which can be quite incapacitating, but also if students don't look after their mental health and they don't think about these things in a really careful way, they can also develop some quite nasty physical symptoms as well as just feeling generally a bit rubbish. So that's the first part of this lesson, and there's some stuff which, to be honest, I think this is a bit of an information transmission type lesson, and again, it's kind of a public health thing as much as it is a science thing. Just some stuff about food groups and things like that. The one part of this lesson in the second half of this lesson, which is really proper science, and I don't mean to disparage what we've done in the first half of the lesson there. If I just I'll zoom back in there like that. But this really involves some bit more kind of logical scientific thinking, is this idea of why we become why we might become overweight or underweight. And again, students will typically have these everyday understandings of this, probably to do with fat, or they might ask you about cholesterol or something like that. And I'm sure you know lots of people who have left school a long time ago who probably also have some misconceptions around this. There's lots of different things have been said. And actually, the one account we can give of becoming overweight or underweight that is pretty hard to argue with. So rather than saying, oh, well, you should eat a bit of this or not eat a bit of that or whatever, the fundamental, from a physics, I suppose, conservation of energy type point of view, the fundamental way we can talk about it is to do with energy. And what I do and what I did when I taught this earlier this year at Orchard Park, this is where this diagram is from. I just showed them a few case studies. And again, super simple diagram, but I describe a person who eats a sensible amount of food and they use quite a bit of energy. And again, this is a nice opportunity to bring in something that they'll be tested on in GCSE biology, but what do organisms use energy for? They use it for movement, for keeping warm, for building proteins and other larger molecules like that. So this is how a person maintains a healthy weight when the amount of energy they take in, typically, obviously, it might not be the perfect match every single day, but over time, those two are kind of balanced. And then this sort of diagram, you can then just show two alternative cases, which is a person, firstly, who, and if you want, you can make this a bit more concrete and describe them. They order a huge 18-inch pizza every night, and they love to drink loads of Coca-Cola, which is full of sugar and gives them loads of energy, and whatever else you want to talk about. But they take in loads and loads of energy, and they sit on the settee all the time, and they never really do any exercise, and they don't spend a lot of time outside, so they don't need to keep warm. So the energy they use is very small. And you can just illustrate to them in those really, really simple terms that because their energy in is much greater than the energy used, ultimately they're going to become overweight. And the disease that is linked to being overweight is called obesity. Conversely, you can imagine a person who does loads and loads of exercise. They spend their life outside. They're really, really active all the time, always kind of building up their muscles because they do exercise or manual work or whatever. So they need loads and loads of energy all the time, but actually they eat a stick of celery every day. What's going to happen to that person, obviously, is that they're going to lose weight because they're using more energy than they're taking in. So that's how a person becomes underweight. One thing I should have added here, I'll add this in a black pen, the disease of someone who is underweight in the extreme is called starvation. So that's just a really simple way of introducing how we become overweight and underweight. It's also a bit less emotive. I think when you're teaching this lesson, be careful because what you don't want it to be is a kind of shaming exercise. That said, it's really, really important that we give students the facts around this stuff. And again, that's why this account is covered in the science curriculum, because it is a factual account that they can then hopefully use to interpret their own lifestyle choices and so on. Anyway, that's it for this lesson. In the next lesson, we will look at germ theory.